Hello, everyone, and welcome to Communications. My name is Alma Hernandez. I am Vice Mayor for Suisun City, and Community Connections is a place where I'll be featuring community members, local businesses, nonprofits, or local initiatives to help build stronger community connections with each other. Today, I am joined by a special guest, Suisun City resident Aleta George, who recently published an article about Suisun City in the Knee Deep Times. The Knee Deep Times is a digital magazine featuring stories from the front lines of climate resilience. Aleta George is a journalist who writes about the nature, history, and culture of California. She has written for Smithsonian Magazine, Los Angeles Times, and San Francisco Chronicle. She is a frequent contributor to the Estuary News Group and Bay Area Monitor, a publication for the League of Women Voters. She's also the author of an award-winning biography of California's first poet laureate, Aleta George, Coolbrith. Born and raised in California, Aleta has lived most of her life near the San Francisco Bay. She swims in it, walks the San Francisco Bay Trail, and gets out on the water every chance she gets. So with that, let's welcome Aleta George. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Alma. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me today.
Yes, well, I'm so excited that you're here. I'm excited that we'll be able to share a little bit about the article that you wrote. I know we've had a chance to connect, and actually that's how we met. You had reached out to see if I would be able to support the article or contribute, as I'm chair of the Environmental and Climate Committee for Suisun City, and that was our introduction. And since then, I've been such a fan of your work, and so I'm really excited to be able to share more of that with community members. I did want to just provide a little bit of space for you, just if there's anything else you want to share about who you are, or a little bit about the article as well.
Thank you, Alma. It's a pleasure to be here and to be talking about Suisun City, my hometown. And the article that I wrote, Suisun City is no island, is about the vulnerabilities, challenges, and opportunities for Suisun City during sea level rise. And the article also highlights what Suisun City is has been doing to address the issue, and that includes education of the community. So I'm happy to be here to talk to you about that.
Well, I'm definitely excited to dive in and for having people to get a chance to learn more about the article and learn more about why the topic is so important. But let's start with a little bit about you. So with that, I'd like to ask, how long have you lived in Suisun City, and where did you live before moving here?
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Novato, which is, as you know, in Marin County. And then in my 20s, when I was a dancer, I moved to Los Angeles for all of my 20s. And then I was happy to come back to the San Francisco Bay Area to attend San Francisco State University, where I switched gears and studied geography, cultural and physical geography. And at that point, I knew I wanted to be a writer. So I was excited to start doing that. But I moved to Suisun 23 years ago. And my husband has lived here for 41 years and owned
Wow.
our old Victorian about that long. And my husband's a retired teacher in the area. And in fact, he was Solano County's Teacher of the Year in 2004.
Oh, congratulations.
And we live in an old Victorian across from the waterfront. And it's built in the 1870s. And the house has really good old bones. It proved that by surviving the 1906 San Francisco earthquake.
Oh, wow. So much history there then.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, well, congratulations to your husband. That is amazing, and
Thank
I
you.
love it. I love it. So everybody out there, we have some really, really great, teachers in the area, and Aleta's husband happens to be an honored one. So I'm so excited that we have someone like that here locally. And, just making connections, my sister, I just got accepted to San Francisco State University.
Oh, great.
Yeah, she was accepted right before closures, and so she deferred her entry because everything was, as we were kind of navigating the pandemic. But will be starting this fall, so I'm really excited. So I'll should have mentioned that's where you went, and so if she
Oh,
has questions, she
fantastic.
can.
I love
uh,
it. It's a great school.
yeah. So as we dive into a little bit more about the work on your article, I did want to ask, in the article itself, you pose a lot of questions, and what did it mean in the article when you said that great blue herons, snowy egrets, pickleweed, and saltgrass had become part of your vocabulary after moving to Suisun City?
Yeah, what I meant by that was when I moved here, it became clear that the marsh ecology was one that I was not familiar with. I started seeing different birds and just noticing different things about the environment that I lived in. And I was a docent at Rush Ranch. And the station that I taught was Plants for Food and Medicine. And so I started doing a lot of studying of the plants in this area and did a little foraging and learned what plants that I could eat in this area that grew naturally in the marsh. And I just wanted to mention that one of the things that I did is my husband and I walked out to Petunia Slough, which is in Suisun City, and I had read that you can use cattail pollen as a flower. It was used by the indigenous people in the area
Oh,
as a
wow.
flower. So I didn't make something only with cattail, but I went out and I got some cattail pollen. And it's not the fluff from the cattail, but it's the pollen on top of the cattail. And when it's ripe, you can kind of just shake it out. And I shook some out and put it in a bag and brought it home and mixed it in with our Bisquick and added it to our pancakes. So it's just a different ecology here, and we have the Suisun Marsh here adjacent to Suisun City, and really it's such an incredible treasure that we have here. It's a stopover for the Pacific Flyway for migratory birds. It's a nursery for fish. It's just very, very important. And most of the communities around the Bay Area don't have remaining wetlands because 90%, I think that's the number that's given, of all the wetlands that surround the bay are developed down to the edge of the bay. So we're very lucky that we have this marsh that's been protected through the years in the Suisun Marsh.
Yes, and it's as I don't know how many of the members viewing today, but it's federally protected, and so it's one of the things that I think is really important to note because that's how important it is to our local ecology and just and as a natural resource and for future protection for future generations to come. And your
Mhm.
mention of Rush Ranch, it's one of my favorite places to visit.
Mhm.
For those of you who are not aware, it's like going towards Grizzly Island, a Grizzly Island, really, basically, and you'll get to Rush Ranch, and it's beautiful nature, open space, and it's right here in our own community. Like it's beautiful, so I would definitely recommend that as a place to visit. Uh, Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that property is owned by Solano Land Trust, and I worked with them for many years, over a decade, editing their newsletters, Vistas and e-Vistas, and it's a great organization. They have other properties in the area, but the Rush Ranch is our neighbor. You can
Yes.
actually see it from the end of the Petunia Slough when you walk down there.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to be provided a tour by the director, Nicole Braddock, and it was I was asking questions about what the today's topic about flooding and the environment and its effect on Suisun. And she was able to show me this part on Rush Ranch where I can see the water from that angle as it comes into Suisun, the Suisun Harbor area. And it just completely helped me see it from a different point of view and then really understand and deepen my understanding of why it's so important to have these topics of conversations and to help keep our community informed about what this can mean for us in the future, as well as starting to work towards mitigation plans to help ensure the safety and the welfare of our community as well.
Mhm.
And that actually is a good tee up to our next question today, which is, what was your motivation to write this article?
Um, well, I attended the Suisun City's first ever Climate and Environmental Festival in October and sat in on the panels that were presented. And uh, at that festival, I learned about a case study that had been prepared on Suisun City by the San Francisco BCDC. And as a journalist that writes a lot about environmental issues, I've been looking at sea level rise maps for many years now. And just going to that panel made me want to learn more about what was happening with sea level rise, or what was going to happen with sea level rise in Suisun City. So I decided to write the article about it so that I could learn more about it and present it to other people as well.
Which I love, and I almost missed naming the article. The article's name is "Suisun City is No Island," and so the moment I read the full article, and I've mentioned to you, it just really helped me really even better understand, even though I'm already involved and I've already been working towards having a more comprehensive understanding of what this can mean for our city. Your article really helped anyone who's just starting to learn about this topic to understand why it's important for us. And so I really, truly appreciated the work. And actually, this is that I just mentioned the name of the article, but that's actually our next question. You refer to Suisun City as an island. Why is that important?
Well, I read that when the first wharf was built in Suisun City, that it was described as an island that was surrounded by marshes, and I thought that was just kind of an important visual to think about Suisun City, because we are very close to sea level rise, and so we're going to be vulnerable. I mean, excuse me, we're close to sea level, so we're therefore vulnerable to sea level rise. But the other thing that I played with in the article with Suisun being an island, is that Suisun, unlike other waterfront cities that are around the bay, uh, that have adjacent cities that they are going to need to plan with and get buy-in to whatever they're going to do. Suisun City is surrounded by marshes primarily, and so one of the women that I interviewed for this article, a coastal scientist, Chris May, she said that let me just quote her correctly: Suisun City is in charge of its own destiny. So in that way, you can think of it as an island. That's an opportunity that it has. But the other thing that's important in terms of it being surrounded by marshes is that also provides an opportunity to think about uh, uh, using eco levies in addressing sea level rise, which a lot of communities around the bay don't have, because their cities are built right up to the water, and they don't have wetlands, and they have hardscape all around them. And we have marshes that marshlands that can be potentially used as eco levees. And eco levees are a little different than the levees we think of now, which are kind of hard, high levees that we think of in the deltas, in the delta where water just goes up against them. But an eco levee is a gradual sloping levee where it can address flood risk and incorporate the natural environment with it. And so it's kind of an innovative levee that can be thought of here in Suisun. And so that was kind of exciting. So that's another way to think of it, as an island in that way.
Yes. And for those who are not as familiar with eco levees, how do you create one?
Well, I don't think I'm that qualified to
Okay.
answer that question, but I have read about them, and I've seen pictures of them, and there are papers that have been written about them, and there are websites you can go to. And if there's I could provide those websites if anybody wants to read more about them.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I deviated, but it's because it's fascinating to me. Just to share a little bit about what I learned recently, our vice chair Jay Guggleman for the Environmental Climate Committee presented. He didn't call it eco levees, but he called it as living levees, which is using
Yes,
the natural resources to start building from the same sediment. It's the same. That natural resources start building out that higher ground per se to create the levees and the runoff of water. And so I just found it fascinating. So I'll definitely have to follow up to provide an opportunity to have someone speak more to what is that. And so we can all
mhm.
learn together, because I personally don't know more than just that, more than just the high level idea of using natural resources to create a levee.
Yeah, I think the main idea behind them is that they're a gently rising, so you build them out so they're a gently rising slope, so that the water, as it rises, it can go, and the creatures have a place to go. And I don't think I can explain it very well, but a living levee and an eco levee is the same thing.
Yes. And actually that we're all learning so many aspects of that of solutions, mitigation. Um, I'm interested in learning more about what was the most surprising or important thing you learned when writing this article.
Well, the most important thing that I learned was that in looking at the sea level rise maps, um, it can be it can be scary. You look at them, and it seems scary to think about that. And but the people that are working on this told me that you can't be afraid to have the conversation now, because now is the time to be thinking about it, because solutions can be made. And then you can also think of them in terms of steps that you take. And I believe it was Chris May who talked about it, just equated it with like a to-do list that you would make at home for things that you have to do, and you prioritize things, and you think of it in steps. You don't have to accomplish everything at once, to be ready for 2100, but that you can do things in steps. And that just kind of takes off the weight of it a little bit. So I thought that was really important for me to learn that. And then also that we just can't be afraid to have the conversation, because we need to be thinking about it now.
Yes, and I 100% agree. 100% agree. And I think that was one of the biggest takeaways I felt most people had after that Climate and Environment Festival, that we had in by the Harbor Theater, and it was just amazing to see. For those who weren't able to attend, this took place last fall, and it was at the Harbor Theater. And we had so many agencies from throughout the region, the county, and the city coming together to help inform community about climate climate resilience efforts in regards to flooding, for example, specifically to flooding. It provided an opportunity for those who could to do a flood walk. That's what we have in Suisun, where we have and someone from Sustainable Solano who has been doing guided tours near the water, near the harbor, and takes you all the way around through specific city streets. And will give you an idea up to how far up the water will go. For those who are familiar with more of the downtown area, you'll see, downtown, City Hall, definitely up to where Crystal Middle School is right now, is at risk for that flooding that could happen in 30 to 50 years. And although it sounds like 30 to 50 years away, we are in the pivotal moment right now to engage in these conversations, to go, we've got 30 to 50 years to put a plan in place, get the resources, the funding, get the right designers, engineers on board to figure this out, and to not do it in a silo. So I loved earlier you were talking about the collaboration, especially as you were interviewing people, and maybe it was Chris May, who is, not to be afraid to have this conversation and have it with each other, but also with other agencies. And so I do know, for example, we're not the only waterfront facing city in Solano. Like, there's also the city of Vallejo. We also have the city of Rio Vista. We also have the city of Benicia. So I do know that as a county, we'll be looking forward for opportunities to engage regionally solutions. And currently, we're looking at agencies that we're talking to, like BCDC, Sustainable Solano, are just two of them that I can think of right now, that we're already engaged in conversation about what do we need to do to start talking about funding, talking about, you mentioned the list. That's such a great example, So what does the list look like for Suisun City specifically, right? And where does community engagement come in? So community engagement will come in when we start getting designs in place, right? This is a proposal of what we think and the engineering of something that can help might be. Well, we want to do that in conjunction with community engagement, community input. Right now, the educational effort, this provides an opportunity to talk to community members and say, did you even know? Have you seen the maps? Where can you get more information? This is exactly the point in time where we want to make sure that it's not new news. It's just, we know it and we're going to move forward to finding solutions for it, right? And that's why I think these conversations are so important. I'm going to share it here. I love this image that you shared with me in regards to Suisun City. I am so proud to live here. I'm so proud I grew up here, so this is home for me. And I love that we have community members like yourself who care so deeply to also raise awareness about things that matter here for our city. I do want to provide, just as we have this image on screen, opportunity for you to talk a little more. This is just us having a conversation here. Talk a little bit more about points of the article that you think someone who hasn't read it yet, you're like, these are like 3 or 4 things that you think you definitely don't want to miss out, because these are 3 or 4 things that were really beneficial for people to know at this time.
Well, the article does provide a link to the maps if you want to go look at the Flood Explorer map that's put out by Adapting to Rising Tides program. And it takes a little bit of getting used to, but you can get it. And it's interesting because it talks about the different levels of sea level rise and how it might look. And this picture, I took this picture during a king tide event. So, which means that it is the highest of one of the highest of high tides in the year. So most of the pictures that I took for this article were taken during a king tide event. The one with the car going through the water was taken by fabulous local photographer Tom Mulison. And he took that during the big storms in October. So the other parts of the article, let's see. I'm trying to go scroll through the article in my mind. Um, I think learning just a little bit about the case study that was done, and to understand that the case study was not, it was a hypothetical done by BCDC, and that case study is going to be used in a adaptation. I forgot what it's called. Sorry, but a report.
Adapting. Are
Pardon?
you talking about adapting to rising tides
No,
biography?
it's the new report that
Oh,
Adapting to Rising Tides is putting out in March to help communities all across the Bay Area build resilience, like how they're going to go about doing it, what's the best way to get communities involved, when to apply for funding. It's kind of like a roadmap to resiliency, and that's coming out in March, so just around the corner. And they did do a case study for Suisun City, which will be incorporated into that report. So it includes a little bit about that in the article. Um, and just the idea that if you're new to thinking about this, just to realize that this is a good time to really start this conversation, because there is funding for this sort of work, even if it's engagement and planning. There's funding for it, and we need to be having the conversation together, all of us, so that we can figure this out.
thank you. And that's those are you hit some really good points. What to go and look up, read the article, additional resources. This is a point in time to have start engaging in this conversation. There is funding. The state is releasing funding out specifically for the regional Bay Area cities, and we are included in that. And so I get a chance to sit on some of those calls. And there was a call with a member from the city of Berkeley, and as they described their scenario, it reminded us of us. For example, that we are a front-facing city. We have water. We don't necessarily have had a plan in place yet, and this is the moment to do so. So we're not alone in this journey, and that makes us feel much better to bring some really great minds together as we plan regionally in the Bay Area, but most likely for us in Suisun City. I just want to say before I transition to the next slide, I just want to say it's been such a pleasure getting a chance to speak with you and share you to our community. I was like I already mentioned, I'm a fan. I read the article, we've interacted, and you care so much about our community, but also have such a way to be able to help others understand why this is important, and to engage in the conversation, right? And it's such an invitation to do so. So I really appreciated that. And I definitely, the moment I came out, I'm like, can we get together? I really want you to talk to the community. This would be wonderful. So thank you for taking the time to join me today.
You're welcome, Alma, and thank you too for all the work that you do. And thank you for having me. Appreciate it. And your kind words. Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you who are wondering, I am going to be posting a link to the article along with this post in all the platforms that I will be posting this video to. But here is the actual link to the article site, and it's with Knee Deep Times. That's the publication. That's a digital publication in the name of the article. Suisun City is no island. So I'll be making sure to share that whether when I post this on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Those are my platforms. So I will be making sure to do so. And with that, I just want to remind you that I'm also available. I think it's really important as city leaders to stay engaged with the members of our community. That is why we're here, to represent community voice. And so I do my best to stay as engaged as I can. So I make my information available. I'm easily accessible. That's my city email and my city phone number. You're always welcome to stop by my the my my website, where I put up information, whether it's updates, newsletters, or any announcements or upcoming events with the city as well. So make sure to stay tuned. And with that, once again, thank you so much. I'm so excited that we were able to do this today, and until next time for everybody else. So
Okay,
bye.
thank you. Bye.